The firefighter came up, knocked on my window and said, dude, you got to get your trucks out of here because the media is here.
Contractors, welcome to the Modern Contractor Network. I have Jay Carter of Jay Carter Roofing. And Jay Carter, I hope you don't mind me speaking for you, brother, but he's evolved into a totally different animal. And looking back, I wish that I would have spent more time throughout my career, because I could have really used you and your perspective. Now, Jay, welcome to the show.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Jay, about just less than a week ago, you and I bumped into each other. I reached out to you, and you started to get into a story which hit me, on a personal level. It just absolutely had me on the edge of my seat, and I didn't want to stop you, and I wish to God I would have pressed record. So somehow, I'm hoping that I can capture what what happened during that conversation. And I did push record this time, Jay, but I'd like you to start from the beginning here, because sure. I'm going to title this podcast, It Could Happen to Any of Us. And Jay, it really did happen to you. So please, right from the beginning, could you please share that?
Yeah, so just to kind of jump in on this story, the important takeaway from it is to understand that, adversity hits us all in different ways. When I started out my career, I was very much on the tools. My whole business and my philosophy at the time was, if I work really hard, I'm going to get somewhere, and that was my belief, and that was my value system. And I think a lot of us, at our ages, if it's been drilled into us. I didn't get the typical onboarding you would to, into trades or any onboarding at all. I was cast into it, thrown into it. It was a shut up and work, and you'll learn something. And we kind of went with that, but that followed me through to where my business started. So I started very early in high school. Right out of high school, I had a fair sized crew and took a lot of risks. Not really realizing that my job was actually to manage risk. I, in fact, invited as much risk as you could find, being in roofing, taking on 20-man crews, running union crews. And really that started to accumulate that I got a good reputation for being a workhorse. People gave me a lot of work, but it wasn't the kind of work that I needed. And really what ended up happening is every time I worked harder, I just got more work. I wasn't making really any big money or anything like that. But at the time of this, this event that changed my life, we were doing good from outside looking in. All right. So we were doing about $12 million revenue a year. To everyone around me, I made it. I had the shops, the trucks, everything else. But I want to say this, I was working 100 hours a week, and I don't even know what possessed me. And it was not a lot, it was not living, I couldn't keep relationships. It was just nonstop putting out fires. I had no systems. I was a mess, but I kept growing. I kept taking more, and I didn't say no. And I was just, one more. And really, when I say it ran me, I mean, it ran me. So I'll never forget this. It's, kind of where things really went bad, because things weren't going good to begin with. All right. And I'll tell you how I can prove that to you now, sitting here looking back, is I was running a $12 million operation, driving material around to my guys. Now, my guys, again, not well-trained, not a lot of respect for the business. I was basically a full-time babysitter, right? I had foremen, but they didn't really know what they're doing. Everything that you could possibly be doing wrong, I was doing wrong. But I had such a passion and such a drive. And really it was driven by pure fear, I was terrified every day of this huge mess that I'd created. I had family working in the business. I had everything that you can imagine. And I wanted to escape. I remember it so vividly, because it was you're just waiting for something to happen. Every day you're waiting for something bad to go wrong. You're waiting for disasters to happen, and they came, and now, again, in hindsight, I know that I was inviting that. I was in the passenger seat rather than the driver's seat. And, I was very young at the time. I was 23, 24, and I was way over my head, right? And, now I'll call it a blessing, but it all amounted to, me driving material. It was a Tuesday afternoon. My guys called me, oh yeah, we're short like 6 rolls of material. So we're doing flat roofing at the time. I roll up to the job and I thought they were on the roof. I could see a little bit of white smoke coming off the top of the roof, which is not uncommon for flat roofs. And like, not shocked. So I get out, put a roll on my shoulder, walk up the ladder, get up there. No guys are there, but I can see smoke, and I could just like a sitting smoke. And it was just, again, I know my instincts start going off. I'm going, we've got to fire somewhere. We've got to fire somewhere. Something bad's happened. Now, this is an historic church. It's, a very loved monument. And, I'm looking everywhere. Now, this is, to boot, this was repairs that we were doing. And repairs are dangerous, especially, but we weren't actually removing anything, which was, again, odd to me. So I start ripping the patches as soon as I introduced oxygen to that thing. So I cut open one of we call them tie-ins. And I was immediately met with a huge ball of flames. And as soon as I opened that cut in the roof, I looked over at the soffits and it went straight down the roof, right up into the inside of the insulation. And within 2 hours, that massive building was on the ground, gone, dust. 2 hours it took. It was all old, like 150-year-old lumber. Like there was no stopping it. Even like by the time I had enough time to grab an extinguisher, all right, when I turned back around, it was black smoke, and it was like it just went everywhere. So I'm trying to put it out. I don't remember the exact, like if it were 10 or 15, like everything for me. And I'll say it honestly now. It was the beginning of a very traumatic and traumatizing moment, right? And I say trauma because I can admit it now as a bigger boy and like, having to go through it. But like something like that happens. And I think a lot of contractors in our minds, we don't acknowledge the fact that this be traumatizing to anyone. You're supposed to be tough. And again, I tried to hold that same frame. I don't remember getting down off the roof. I just remember being in my truck, putting my hands in my head in my hands and thinking to myself, that's it. This is over. Now I know something, the value of this church I shouldn't have been working on to begin with. I didn't have the insurance to cover it. And here I am looking at, what is basically a town, actually it's an Ontario monument. It's a national monument and it's on fire and there's fire trucks, there's firemen. But I remember putting my head in my hands and thinking, well, that's it. All the work that I'd done for that whole decade, my family house, like everything that I could think of. And that's what I was thinking of at that moment. It was like, what am I going to do? I need to take care of my family. Like I have all these guys and all their families, like everything's just like, it all came down on me all at once. And it was just, if I don't remember what happened from the point of looking up and seeing that, like all the fire trucks and all the, them trying to put it out. I don't remember what happened. Like I remember just little pieces of it. And then the one thing that I do recall from that like exact moment was the firefighter came up, knocked on my window and said, dude, you got to get your trucks out of here because the media's here. And they're going to catch all your trucks. And we don't want any more problems for you. And like, I must have talked to other people or like, again, I like my details of the moments are way off now, but I was just, in pure shock, in pure, like, again, in every, like shell shocked, how quickly it happened, like all the repercussions. And I remember a little bit, I didn't drive home. I got someone to drive me home because I was out of it. Like my mind was racing. And, for 3 days, I did the worst thing that you could do. And, that I'm not so proud of it, but I shut my phone off and I hid. I hid in my basement. I was like, I'm not coming out. People were calling me, but like, I was so like, I had burn injuries. I had like, I was so messed up.
Wow.
And the first phone call that I decided to take was probably the best phone call I ever took in my whole life in hindsight, obviously not at the moment, but my team that I had at the time, obviously I'm dealing with maybe one person, they're explaining all these things, but our bank we had a large line of credit with, they sent a crisis manager. because of like how severe the situation was. We knew that it was going to exceed my insurance. We knew that they had put an immediate stop on my insurance altogether. So we're flat roofers at the time. When they take away your insurance, means you can't work on any of the projects. I have 50 projects.
Ouch.
I'm way leveraged. I have so much money out because I'm doing commercials. So like, again, no one told me at the time about cash flow and all those kind of things. I just kept taking more and more and working harder and harder and harder. And like, this is where it got me. And it was the worst. Like, I was already like so stressed out and so burnt out, like and I was stuck. I was really stuck. You know what I mean? I was stuck in the mindset that I had all these accountabilities, all these responsibilities. And like, again, like I said, it was a long drive to get to that point. And then, watching it kind of disappear on me and immediately. So, I get this phone call from the crisis manager. And I think at some point he asked me a question that really like kind of triggered something with him. He was, he basically said, like, what are you going to do? Like, you can't just run away from this. And, you've got two choices today. Like today you can, we can step up and we can face it. He's like, or you can sit back down, not come out, and you'll never, ever be at this point again in your life. And is that what you want? Like, you'll never own a business. You'll never, like, you better just go work for somebody and like, you've learned your lesson sort of deal. Right. And I remember it hit me like a pile of bricks. I'm like, well, what's worse? Like, do I face this thing? Do I fight this thing? Like, what do I do in this situation that I'm in? And again, this is a 24-year-old kid that like, it's hard to explain just such a dramatic difference between, the Jay then and the Jay now. Like, I was a lot more irrational. Like I wasn't, I don't even think my brain was fully developed, but that made a lot of sense to me. So, I agreed to meet him. We met at a Tim Hortons. And again, when I was talking to him, he's like, you basically have two choices. He's like, here's what's going to happen if you run or if you avoid it. Right. And I mean, be honest with you, looking back, I wish I'd taken that option just in hindsight, in absolute hindsight. But the fight in me wouldn't let it go. And again, looking back on it, it was the best thing and the worst thing ever to happen all at once. So, the other option was, I could claim, full bankruptcy. They would take the house. They would take, because I had personal guarantees. I had a lot of commitments. And on top of that, what happened in the 3 days after the fire is I had roughly about 50 projects that were in various states of, some were completed, but they were with two contractors. So they heard about it. And almost immediately, instead of being like, hey, dude, sorry about that problem or whatever, they immediately started sending demand letters that I demand to complete, that they were replacing, like whatever it cost them to replace me. Like, so there was all this extra bullshit put on. And again, I'm looking back on it and going, who was I in bed with here? Like I have 50 projects and they basically tasted the blood and they're like, we've got this kid. Like, we're going to take him for everything he has. And they did. They properly did. So because I couldn't set men on the ground, and I tried other things, but there was a period of time where I couldn't be on any projects. And basically I had to be honest with my guys and tell them, this is what's happened. This is the situation. It's, until I can get insurance to get back on back on things. Well, that set off a whole bunch of chain reactions. And basically within the week, I had to let go of nearly 50 guys. Okay, so I'm giving layoffs, and I had to go. The only insurance I could get was for residential roofs, and I'm going, well, I haven't done residential roofing, and like again, it was something that was just like it was such a shock and a setback for me. Like when you go from doing projects that are $500,000, $750,000, and you're order taking, I'm not having to fight to get these. Like they're just being given to me one after another. They're restaurants and, big churches and all these other things. I kind of got lazy with that. And I put all my eggs in one basket. And it's exactly what I did.
Well, and two contractors, right?
Right. These were general contractors. And again, there's no rules in commercial business. It's a money game. There's slaves and there's masters, right? The slaves are the ones that are broke. Okay. It's the ones that need the money. They know you need the money. They can smell it on you, right? So they play that. They use it as a mechanism to keep you under control, to give you more work. We had the same situation occur with insurance companies. Like the ones that are truly doing the work out there, all right, tend to be the ones that really get taken advantage in bad situations. Because had I had business smarts, had I known how to structure my business to reduce that risk, to make sure that, like if that same event happened to me tomorrow, I would shrug it off, drop my numbered company, pick up the second numbered company, release the company name, and be working tomorrow as if nothing happened, right? And, going back, those are the things you couldn't have learned. You don't know what you don't know, right? And unfortunately, I think a lot of us face this thing is that, the things you tend to focus on, the things that you think are important when, growing a business and scaling a business turn out to not be that important. So I was very strong about getting the work done and look at me, how much work I can do. Look at the volume, but I wasn't making any profit. And that's the first thing that, coming out of it, that I needed a mentor. I needed somebody to really slap me in the head, because I had some big decisions to make. And number one is I did decide to fight it. I did decide I never went bankrupt from it. I still have that name, still, continue to do business afterwards. But let me explain to you where it might not have been the best decision, again, in hindsight, we're talking, 10 years later, I fought the Catholic Church because they have their own insurance company. So they're actually insured privately by them, their own internal insurance. And finding out working with them is, basically dealing with a mafia, and I say it in full respect. So some of the rules that would apply to, a typical insurance claim didn't necessarily apply to them. So my insurance company came in, they tried to negotiate with them to settle the claim, and but they weren't picking up the difference. So the difference was about 8.6 million fell squarely on me.
Wow.
And they gave me basically zero room to breathe. Everything because I continued to try and do business, they had, and they've got a very, very, very good legal team. So lawyers at the time, they had me so backed up against the wall, that I couldn't even afford the corporate lawyers to fight this stuff, because litigation law is the most expensive law in the world, right? So, and it can go on for years and years. With them, they would get judgments. They would, we'd have our bank account seized. We'd have just one thing after another. And really, again, we had to call a truce with them and say, listen, here's the options. I'm trying to come up with a settlement. I'm not trying to run away from it.
Of course.
And, I need some mercy here. All right. So they gave me a very steep, it was $50,000 a month that I had to make every month as a payment, or the judgment would be re-engaged. And basically they were after any assets that I had left, which happened to be, again, it was, our house, a shop, the things that my family lived in, there was no, for me, losing that was the last bit of dignity I had left. And, I wasn't losing that and again, in hindsight, the money that I put in just making those payments,
right,
would have far exceeded that. There was no rationale behind it. It was just purely, again, partially to do with the feeling I had around, and I'll call it shame that I had around the event itself. I felt like everybody knew, everybody had seen it, it was in the news, people knew that I did it. And, it's funny now when I talk to people about, they're and especially bigger contractors, they're that's your first, here's some guys that have burned down 10 buildings, 12 buildings. Now it's a different thing. Now that's never what you want.
No.
But when you're in this kind of business, and the bigger, you're going to have serious claims, right? That's a part of understanding your risk, managing the risk, and really getting the emotions out of the business. And again, when I look back at everything, even the story I'm telling to you right now, here's one very, very important lesson that I think everybody should learn is the more emotionally tied to your business you are, the more blinded you will be to these situations.
Interesting.
Okay. And the real reason is because emotions, all right, they lie to you. They dictate you and they get you to do crazy shit, especially when you don't know what you don't know. Okay. So how many of us emotionally manage our business? We make gut decisions. We don't look at numbers. We don't look at data. We don't look at profitability. We don't look at, even the simple things, you know what I mean? We're not scheduling our jobs properly. We're making the same mistakes over and over and over again, expecting a better result.
Yep.
And that just doesn't happen. And for me, it literally, if you want to talk about being the example of what not to do, I've done it, right? I wasn't willing to listen. I was too busy to take advice. I was too busy and I shut these things out. I had been given warnings. I had been told, Nobody, like, I could not stand here and say that I had no clue this would happen. I was told you don't run that kind of, I had lawyers, I had, like, we were running a fair size operation, but I didn't listen. And it was that not listening and thinking I knew best that got me in so much trouble. Because, two things that I could have done immediately, and I won't forget it. I had just finished my taxes with our tax lawyer. All right. And was in debt for those because obviously, I'm a roofer and I used that money to build the business and not really understanding my numbers. Yep. And one of the things he explained to me is like, hey, you are a sitting duck right now. Like, you need to do something to limit your liability with all these crews. You have in-house crews that are running around. Every job you're doing is exceeding insurance. It's exceeding, like, you're at such a high risk. He's like, nobody wants to touch you. Even my bank had they multiple times had told me, you can't do this and you can't do that. And it was always me just finding a way to get around it and really thinking, well, the system's trying to hold me back. This person's trying to hold me back, blaming it on people, blaming it on this person, feeling sorry for myself. Like, all those things, again, got me exactly what I deserved, and in hindsight, again, we're looking back at it going, I'm the typical contractor. Like, when somebody told me don't touch it, it's hot, I put my hand on it. And then I stood there and bitched about why it burned. So, that all that was the hardest lesson. And I fought it for 6.5 years before we actually got like 4.5 million, somewhere in there, forgiven by the church, which I had to deal with the Vatican, like serious business. And it came down to the fact that I fought it for so long and so hard and so, like, it was taking so much. But I learned something in that process was, I learned very quickly about profitability, because now it wasn't an option. I couldn't have any jobs that didn't earn profit because I had this massive bill hanging over my head that if I didn't pay, they were coming. And, like, again, it was a seize order. And, like, no one believed that I would even have a chance of keeping up with this stuff.
Right.
So month after month, like, quarter after quarter, some quarters would be like, I mean, again, I hate to tell you just how poor things got and how bad things were, and I was fighting to get the right guys and, like, but it forced me to think about profitability first and foremost on every single job, every operational corner I could, manage and budget. And, like, again, like, I if I wasn't doing the work myself, like, for me, like, one man can't go out and bang on $50,000 worth of shingles. I knew that. So I needed to keep production at a certain level. I needed to keep it profitable. So it started forcing me to look for safe options, safe everything, like the risk, everything else was, everything was off the table. And, when the first month, I'll never forget, we're sitting on the 15th of the month and I've got like $12,000 to show for the whole month. And I'm killing myself. Like, I'm out 7 to 8 at night. Like, I'm doing everything I can. And, I've got basically nothing to show for it. And, for the rest of the month, the same thing. Like, these are back to the 70, 80-hour weeks. But coming home, making sure all my jobs, all my quotes, everything have to meet this, like, budgeting out to meet this payment, requirement. And, again, it's just month after month. And eventually I started getting pretty consistent with it. I started being able to predict my profits and forecast so that I would know, hey, can I take my family out for dinner? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's how bad it was. Like, wow. Every dime, every nickel that I'm spending. And, still looking back, and I'm going, why did I put myself through that? Like, I'll never understand for the life of me, but there was something about, like, just not, I'd gotten into it. I'd already, I felt like I dug myself a hole, and I was, I had to get out of it. I had to fight my way out of it. And there was days I just, I would drive around and just, I wouldn't know where I was going. I'd just be lost. Like, what am I doing? Like, this is just such a miserable existence. Like, and it really did take so much of my life out of me. And, but when I started to see the light at the end of the tunnel, a couple of things that really, were the difference for me is, number one, I learned to ask for help. I learned to reach out to people and be vulnerable, which is an unusual word to use in the contracting world. Right. That being vulnerable, again, a lot of guys think that they have to keep everything inside and keep it to themselves. Well, that was killing me. Like, it was causing me lots of harm. And I realized that, by being the tough guy and being the typical contractor, and I can take everything on, that's how I got in the situation. right? I was unwilling to ask for help. I didn't want anyone to know. And it really came down to my insecurity about being a failure, right? I didn't want to be exposed as a failure, but here I am in the biggest, the biggest fail you can come up with. And I have to be in it every day and live in it and exist in it. And, there's, the shame of it all and like all the limiting beliefs that came with it all, when I started asking for help, when I started reaching out to people and asking for help and being sincere with them and getting a business coach, getting a consultant, the bank was kind enough to assign us a crisis manager, which, gave me the first taste of, consulting and getting help and asking for help. And he saved me a lot just in terms of, the way that I had to file everything, the way that I could buy myself time, the way that and I was like, wow, like this guy knows what he's doing. And he got me from, a place I had no clue of. And I was super uncomfortable, obviously. Mm-hmm. And he basically dragged me through that and got me to the other side. And I was like, if I had tried to do that on my own and figure all that out, like that would have been a lifetime, right? Just the paperwork, how the file, what to do with my taxes to show it as a loss so that I never, I had, years of tax credits, which is amazing. But some of those things, in fact, I just, I'm still could, entertain tax credits from that incident because we paid back so much as a loss. But, all those things really started to get some momentum behind Jay, the businessman, right? So, and there's a big difference. There's a big difference between the trades guy that I was, and I mean that in the most sincere way. Like, again, work hard, you're going to get somewhere. If I just work more, if I work more, if I, missing all the family events, doing all those things, those typical things, and, getting my hands dirty. And if the guys don't see me out there, killing it, they're not going to respect me. Like all that shit was out the door because you know what they appreciate more than seeing you work hard and being out in the field? They appreciate their paycheck and stability.
Absolutely.
They appreciate leadership. When you can stand up and be a strong leader, all right, that will trump anything you can do with your hands in the field. Right. And again, when you can be a strong businessman, when you can do things with your business that are innovative, not necessarily new or different, but just, making things easier, simpler. Right. Again, those are the things that employees and staff respect. If you actually have a plan, if you have a vision, if you can see where you're going, if you can communicate that, those are the things that get you places far faster than being good at what you do. Being good at what you do, you can be the Wayne Gretzky of whatever trade you're in. All right. At the end of the day, what business owners understand is here's a couple of things. It's how you manage your risk, because we're all, we all want to make money. We all do. Very few people really price properly. All right. Where the money's already in the job, you're already making a profit, and your job is to manage the risk of that, to make sure that you get paid on time, to make sure that, you've got the right staff. You make sure those are risks you have to manage. And when you start to take a responsibility more for those things, because again, could I hire, crackheads from the bus station anymore? No. The answer is no. I needed guys that could show up every day. I couldn't take the risk with somebody, and did I pay more? Yes. Did I make more? Far more, right? Guys don't understand this though. They keep taking these risks. They're afraid to hire someone better than they are. And that, again, is another moment you have where the aha moments come out. One of my most powerful aha moments is really when I learned the job cost. When I understood that before you do a job, before you take on a project, know your risk. That includes your job cost. That includes if I put out this much, I'm going to get this much back in what days, right? And again, you rinse and repeat. When you start to run your jobs from a job cost perspective, all right, first of all, you stop saying yes to the customers that continually screw you, because for me, I didn't have time. So I could only find A clients, all right? And it led me really on the pathway of finding awesome clients that I wanted to work with, that paid me well. And I didn't have any resistance to the pricing, and I could make enough money to pay back my debts without, and again, it was forced. Had I not been forced, I wouldn't have seeked out those things. So again, I think a lot of contractors get comfortable just getting by. They get comfortable and they put a lot of hope in that things will get better, and they don't. They will not until you change, until you evolve, until you grow, right? You can't expect to make more money if you don't actually take accountability for the money you're making now. If you don't know where that money's going, if you don't know, what growth is and how to make a sustainable thing, and you don't have to run a big business. You don't have to run a complicated business. For me, again, a spreadsheet that our business uses to this day, and we're back, we're doing $10, $12 million. We're, very profitably. I don't work at all in the business. I've taken on other passions and lots of vacations after that, and really got my freedom, at the end of the road of all this stuff. And again, from that whole event, I had to learn the very hard way, but sincerely, I think, again, if contractors listen to even parts of what I'm saying and, took on just the simple things, the easy things that are all something they can do, they can take control of, right? And I think, again, in the contracting world, we have all these shiny objects. I hear a lot of contractors day in and day out tell me about all the things holding them back, all the things in their way, all the, the hidden, people after them and the boogeyman. Really, that doesn't exist. It's you, right? And when you realize it's you and you see that it's you that's in the way, it's you stopping you, it's enlightening and it's empowering. But that's really when real change starts to happen. When you realize how much control and power you have by being responsible, by, focusing on the things that you can control, right? If you're losing money on jobs and you're not making money, take control. All right. That's your responsibility. Why are you losing money? If math isn't your good skill, then find somebody that is until you understand every ounce of that. Don't be a contractor. Don't take on risks. Don't just, it's not an adventure. Okay. You're not an explorer. You're not discovering new worlds. All right. You're in a business, and business is predictable, right? Although your business may be unique, your problems are not. All right. And again, these are all things once contractors start talking to other contractors, they realize. And that was, another, kind of aha moment that I had and that I continue to have, and that, has gotten me even further, along in my path is, when you hear and you see and you work and you help other contractors, you start to figure out that, hey, you know what? My problems are not that uncommon. A lot of people are having the same fucking problems. So, the first thing I did is the things I did figure out, I shared them. Unlike the old mentality of hide everything and let's keep the information behind a wall, that shit's out the door. Forget that. If you've got that mindset, that is the most limiting belief that you possibly can have. There is no information, knowledge, anything special that you have in your possession right now that it's worth a fucking nickel. All right. And I mean that. All right. I mean that so sincerely. Because again, you will find people that are 10 times better at doing the thing that you're doing, and they're more willing to share. And the guys that I've seen that I really look up to and that have good lives, not just good businesses, because there's that side of it too, is, learning that, and I've had to learn this, and especially after my experience and everything else is, when you have a family now, right? It's not okay to work 60, 70 hours. It's not okay. Like, those things are not acceptable. Right. I did, I busted my nuts so that when I have had kids now, I get to be part of their lives. Like I don't have to work. I don't have to do the things like I used to have to do. Right now, I don't have to do those things. And again, it's the accumulation of, those are choices. Those are decisions that I've made. Those are boundaries that I've drawn because I'm my own worst enemy. Would I work 70 hours a week? 100%. Like, I do that without really trying, you know what I mean? But now there's a big difference is you realize that doesn't get you any further. In fact, when I worked less, I made more money. Does that make sense? Wow. So here's another really a powerful moment I had in my business. And again, it's just one of these things in life. And I hope that, every contractor gets this moment, but one of my proudest and most saddest moments of my career has been, when I gave over operations of my business about three or 4 years ago. And, what's happened since then is, I go into the shop or I go, people don't even know who I am. And it's like, they don't know who I am. And, I remember every contractor has this dream. Well, this business is now making you enough, you can go, lay on a beach or something. And I remember that was that's a great idea. It never happened. Right. And again, I made yet another mistake in my journey is that I planned for the summit, got to the summit where most people are happy. I'm comfortable. What I mean? I've made multiple seven figures. I'm doing well. I'm secure. And I use my money as investments, but I made it to as high as I could go. I made it to as far as I wanted to go anymore in contracting, right. And basically said, now it's time to transition. And again, I had coaches, I had a lot of people, but I never planned my next summit. I didn't have my eye on another mountaintop. I had worked 20 years to get to that point. And when it was finally there, I was lost. It was like, I don't have a reason, like, and again, and I mean it, like, that's what got me into helping other contractors and stuff. Cause like, what am I supposed to apply these skills to? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what do I do with my time? And again, you know, most guys think they know what they'll do. They think that they're in love with the image of it. They're in love with the idea behind it. But when it actually comes, like, again, now I have to deal with the battle wounds of and the trauma and all the other bullshit that comes up from making it to that point. And you know, it's almost been my therapy to help other people not make the stupid ass mistakes that I've made along the way, along the path. And again, you know, it's been very helpful in trying to find a cause or find somewhere to create impact. Because I think, again, you know, there was a good point in my career where I chased money, right? Where I was chasing it. And it's a prime example. Nothing but problems followed me. Nothing but problems. It was only when I woke up every day and I thought about solving a problem that the problems went away. All right. And then money started chasing me. And I think that's the biggest idea shift that I had. And I had to be told that many times, and I had to be given lots of examples. And, you know, people looked at me, would, you know, look at my watch and tell me what time it was. And I'd be amazed. It's like I found a new thing, but it's right there in front of you, right? You can't see the forest for the trees. You're fighting the invisible enemies, and, you know, the boogeyman, I would call them, right? And all of these fears and concerns and pressures and anxieties. And like, you're never really present to actually manage the business, right? To actually be a leader, to actually be, and it's so funny because it takes zero time compared to all of the other things that get in the way, the distractions, the anxiety, the depression, like all of those things are all you, right? And that's what I mean. Like, I created that whole mess, that whole your own way, nightmare, right? Yeah, right. But, you know, I did manage to fight my way out of it. And it took listening to people that were in places I wanted to be and really focusing on what actually mattered, what actually made a difference, and being willing to, you know, when you have nothing to lose and your back's against the wall, you're a lot more open to hearing what other people have to say. Agreed. And especially because you've been knocked down 10 steps. Like, there was a total, you know, not entitlement at the time, but just pure absolute stupidity that I was, because I thought that I got to this level, all right, and this just must be how everybody, pure ego.
The ego had to be removed, and you had an entire 1 or 2 lifetimes worth of lessons just jammed into that 6.5 year period.
Oh, it was, for sure. And you know, now I still deal, like, you're still aware of your ego, but like, you don't let it get in the way, right? Of course. Again, I'm a student. I'm a proud student. I take mentorship. I have coaches. I have other people around me that keep me, you know, on track with what it is that I'm actually trying to do. What is it that, you know, and it's those things that get you so much further, because none of us, I don't, you know, as far as I'm aware, there's not a contractor university where they go and they teach you all the business side of being a contractor.
Right. Now, let me stop you there for a second.
Sure.
And I've let you go for the last like 30 minutes, which I was not going to dare stop you. You mentioned that, you know, your passion is to help other contractors. And aside from the story, like, you've just been jammed full of, you know, hardships and lessons. And I can't, you know, you painted a really good picture on what it was like to live with what you were living with. Now, what things are you doing now? This is a perfect segue to get into what you're doing now to help other contractors. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So, you know, again, for the last 4 years, I was actually in the coaching space. So I was a business coach for contractors, actually helped another business grow and really got to learn, you know, the ins and outs of seeing a lot of contractors, hundreds, if not thousands of contractors day to day, how they're operating and kind of the problems that they were experiencing. Great experience, you know, 4 years of, you know, basically almost a year before COVID, when I had shifted from running the business to now what do? I decided to go and start business coaching. And that was a lot of fun, and I got a lot of insight to it. But I've seen a big gap in the market. A big gap with coaching in general is that it's excellent for mindset. It's excellent for guys that are just getting started and that want to, really get over their fears and move forward. And again, this is necessary, and not going to badmouth coaching in any regard. I feel like it's necessary, and some people respond really well to it. But the one thing it never provided was, the real roadmap. Like, what is the pathway? What is the actual system I need? Like, what is the, the puzzle pieces? That's right. And then part of it, it's easy to say, hey man, you just need to go and implement this CRM, or hey man, it's very easy. You just need to put this, this system in place or that system, not understanding that, hey, this guy may not even be able to open his email, and you're asking him to technically put together something that is so complex that it requires a team to put together properly and have it work properly. Right. Yep. So, one of those, I realized that gap. And I also realized myself that, I was a little bit over coaching like startup companies and guys that were just getting started out. It brought up a lot of trauma for me. And I'm just being honest. It was very difficult to continuously kind of go back and remember those moments and try to work. I just prefer to forget a lot of what happened. And, so I found myself really looking at companies that were more doers. Okay. So I focus on pure doers. Now, you can be in a startup position, but if you're a doer, you show you're a doer. All right. And you show you're a doer by showing up, doing what you need to do, committing to making a change and being comfortable being uncomfortable. It's very easy to see too. It's very easy to find. It's very easy to qualify when we're speaking to people. We know who doers are, right? And again, I don't say they're like me, but like they're similar. There's a lot of similarities. So I look for doers that want to scale their business, and we simply put the systems in place for you. We help you to manage the change. Most people don't understand that there's a huge, we're wired as human beings to deal with change the same way. It's something we can't avoid. And guys don't realize this, right? So a lot of times they get stuck in an endless loop of shiny objects and distractions. And, when they go to implement systems, they get half implemented. And there's a whole bunch of things that go into that. So we really come in, we set in the accountability systems, we set in the KPIs, we bring in our own team to take over basically the operation, put the thing in place, put it all back together for you, and make sure that you're being able to lead it. So we've been able to scale, a number of businesses to 7-figure. We've done it in a number of different spaces. We're very proud of it. All of our customers that we've had so far, we've retained. So 93%. We've lost one customer in over a year. So wow. Again, but it's a partnership in a lot of ways. Is that we're looking very carefully at the companies we want to work with. We want to make sure that they have good, core values. They've got good principles, because we can put marketing on them and it'll absolutely destroy them. And I always get the image of myself. Had I given myself that firepower back in the day, I would have just destroyed myself even sooner. Right?
Describe what you mean by that. I want you to spend a little bit of time on that.
So,
power behind those that aren't ready, and it'll destroy them.
So it's unethical for me. And again, I will call myself as a consultant, but it's unethical for me to build you a sales system like the one that's in my business. I've got, leads on demand, business on demand. Like, we're very, very stable that way and have been for a long time. And that's really the driving mechanism behind building a contracting business. I long ago shed the idea that I'm a roofer. I'm not like the roofing contractor died that day at the fire. Like, he's gone, right? That is not me. That's not who I am. And it was replaced with, first of all, a good operator, all right, a manager. Okay. I wore that hat for about 3 or 4 years until I got really good at managing the operations of the business. Mm-hmm. But I realized it was missing something that really got me freedom. And that thing was identifying as a sales and marketing company before anything else, right? Because if we look at it properly and you understand the principle behind it, there's nothing scalable in your business, including, like guys that think it's the work and this and that. No, you're all wrong. All right. There's only 2 things that are scalable in your business and that can improve, that will bring you freedom. That's sales and marketing. If you can't get enough leads, well, you can be the best guys, on the tools ever, or have the best guys. You can't get enough lead flow into your business, and you can't do it on demand or, close to at a predictable rate. Okay. You're pretend business. Okay, you're not really in business. And I think a lot of guys out there recognize that, and it's held them back for a long time. I think a lot of agencies and a lot of predatory marketing companies are out there taking advantage of contractors, and they're easy prey, right? They know they don't know their numbers. They know they don't look at very important KPIs. And again, I see it day in and day out, hundreds, thousands of contractors with the same exact problems. So I identify as a sales and marketing company first and foremost, right? Mm. Everything after that is an expense, okay? Including the CEO role, the manager role, everything is an expense, okay? So if I get the opportunity to focus on two things every single day, and I continue to grow those two things, the rest will follow, provided that you have, again, good structure, you have the right people. And here's where I think a lot of guys miss the mark is, they got two common problems. They don't get enough work and can't find guys. I hear that one the most often.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, we always hear that.
What people don't realize is sales and marketing is the exact same process, same system, same advertising, everything is exactly the same as recruitment and hiring, right? So, and if you can't do one, you cannot do the other. So what we do is we put the system to keep score in place. We give you, the right marketing strategy for your goals and where you want to be. But more importantly, we keep you under control by teaching you the job costing, by making sure you're profitable. Like, I'm not going to give you enough leads to kill yourself, right? Because like I said, we're in a world there's never been a better opportunity ever in the history of human beings to find work. Like, look at all of the opportunities that are out there. We're surrounded by them. And I see it all the time where guys come to me, they're like, I just can't find jobs. And they really do believe that. But, I have to point it out. Like, there's probably more work in a 5-kilometer radius of where you are right now than you could ever imagine in your life doing. Why aren't you getting it?
Yeah, and your ability to reach it has never been easy.
It's unbelievable, even in the development in the last 5 years. But with that comes a huge risk. And here's really what my mission is underneath all of this. I see a couple of things in the market that I want to, what Contractor AI stands for, is there's a lot of hardworking guys like me that deserve a chance, that have businesses, even established businesses that are, again, they're finding their feet. We'll say the majority, 90% of contractors out there are at big risk right now. And the reason why is we can already see the writing on the wall. Since the introduction of newer technology, we're seeing actual venture capital coming into these markets. Okay, so big time. We're talking like BlackRock and, those kind of investments, because here's why. In the next 5 to 10 years, okay, with labor shortage and everything, it is a high ticket, high value, place to be. Add the technology to it. So you take like Angie's List and you take these marketing companies out there that are technology companies. All of a sudden, they have the ability to price, estimate, but, they can manage the marketing. They got the two Death Stars at their disposal, and they got big time money. You're not going to be able to compete with that. All right. And we're already seeing it. We're already seeing, like, you think it's hard now, speed it up 10 times, where, prospects can literally make a choice of, color on their wall with a VR print and select the company they want to go with in the matter of seconds, not hours, not days, not weeks, seconds.
Well, they've never been able to control the blue collar sector before.
That's right.
They have the agriculture sector and all these other sectors. And blue collar, he who controls the blue collar wins. And
exactly, in the blue collar is the last thing that they're going to fully automate. They're actually doing the work. So here's the risk to everybody that's out there, and that we see coming, and that we know is there. And again, I've got the privilege of being at a lot of big events, being higher up in the market. Like I said, I was COO for a very large coaching company, and we got to see a lot of things of what the future has, right? I'm also, an avid learner, and just seeing the technology that some of these companies are wielding it's empowering and exciting for me. But I immediately go, well, what about all of these blue collar guys that are got families and everything else? Are they expecting them to go back to work for these? Like, are we all going to be working for a corporation? Like, I really feel like the blue collar is going to be under threat, and it's pure greed that's going to drive that.
And you mean that the spirit of entrepreneurs in the blue collar sector, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, it'll turn everybody into employees, basically.
Well, it's going to lock out. So again, let's take plumbing, HVAC for example.
Sure.
Okay. And again, here's a very good saying in marketing: he who can afford to spend the most to acquire a customer wins. Right? Makes sense.
That's
so
the text.
let's think about this for a second. So if you're a venture capital with a couple $1,000,000 behind you, how easy would it be for you to come in and buy the algorithm for an entire area? And then not like this didn't happen with the big box stores or anything, like not like we have a perfect example of what will happen, where they can afford to do it at a loss for a certain amount of time to starve everybody out.
Shit.
All right. And to get everybody out of business. And then what? And then what? I told you so. And then all of a sudden they're going to be popping up with these great jobs that are going to steal all your manpower, and everybody else that was, well, why would I work for you? These guys are going to be highly organized. They're going to be able to afford to wait for their money. And that's the scary part here. Like when you start pumping that kind of money out where you have disposable income, right? Where you've got millions to wait it out. You're going to put all these guys that have been running their businesses to provide for their lifestyles, okay, haven't been really, focused on running great businesses, haven't been focused on the operations of their business. They're going to be gone, right? And anybody trying to come in, anybody who has, let's say you wanted to start up, well, it's going to be the equivalent to you starting up a hardware store now and trying to compete with Home Depot. So think about that.
Possible.
Well, and it's happening in other markets where people don't realize they did it already. They've done it in multiple places, and it's coming for this. There's no doubt. So
they're coming
what's the answer?
Construction. What do we do?
100%.
And how do we do it?
So first of all, I think that there needs to be, again, I said doers earlier. Like there's people like, no matter what you say or what you're like, they're never going to take action. They're never going to get out of their own way. They're going to always, I'm not looking for those people. They can go and work for somebody. Okay. But the guys that truly understand and want to grow their business and have a vision for, more than, just chasing cash. All right. But want to have a business that gives them freedom. And I feel like we, as contractors, have a better chance at creating a better system, a better process, a better way of doing things. And it starts with, okay, let's get the tech side down. If they got tech, we should have tech. So, I mean, even in my business, Contractor AI, we bring that tech in, and we're the team that's going to continue to innovate, continue to find new things that we can implement for you so that you're not running out trying to learn all this stuff and trying
powerful approach. Yeah. It's daunting too. We're contractors. We're not. Yeah.
Well, but that's just it. So here's the thing. Here's the part that I feel is the most important thing. I don't want to overwhelm. Like there's no, I could overwhelm contractors very quickly. That's the opposite of what I'm trying to do. What I have to get them to do is understand how they manage their emotions with change, because change is like if you learn to adapt to change and positive change. So again, like we're talking about professionals bringing something into your business, implementing it, you're still going to feel like, and we get the feedback all the time, like we are intruders, like we are talking down to them, and like all these things. We're learning very carefully how to work with owners so that their emotions don't get in their way,
of course.
Right? That we can implement these things and start to condition them to be a powerful one, to own their space, to, guerrilla market, like all of these things, like own your space. If you can own, a 5-kilometer radius, all right, and that's your territory, and you fight like a dog to keep it, to yourself, there's nobody coming in to take it from you. And, again, just like I said, big box store and all that, people want to buy local. They want to buy from, the local trades guy. They want to, and where's that spirit? Where do we showcase that? And, the other thing is we want to bring new people into the trade. I think there's a huge opportunity with all the tech jobs going away and stuff like that. Let's become good employers. Let's not be pieces of shit that micromanage our staff and keep them down and keep them under control. Like right. That's not the way to do it anymore.
And all right, the way to do it is actually,
that's right. Empower them, coach them, make them like, what? Look at this industry. Just everybody look around. Like, because like I had mentioned earlier when we were talking when I first started, when I came into the roofing business, it was to shut up and work, and like there was no training, there was no onboarding. It was harsh, right? And I thought you just had to be tough. That bullshit's got to go, man, because
Nope.
the millennials coming in behind us have a different value system. And I learned
They're
this very,
not
very
that
quickly.
stupid.
No,
They know better.
But here's the thing that's to their advantage, right? It is we don't have, first of all, I'll address this. We don't have a labor shortage. Okay? We don't have less people on the planet today than we did 25 years ago. Okay, so tell me we have a labor shortage, and I'll have to laugh at you. Know what we have is a cultural problem, and we have two different value systems. Okay, so we have baby boomers and Gen Xers and stuff that basically are operating businesses in the space. Okay, their value system was to shut up and work, and if you work somewhere,
Yes.
you'll get an opportunity. Now we got the millennials that have come in and are like the opposite to that, and they're like, show me an opportunity first, and then I'll work. So you see what happens is they don't recognize that they have two different value systems, and they drive the baby boomers have done a wicked job of driving away people from being interested in the trades. They are driving away. And then, we add the government stuff, like they're not promoting it in schools, and we add all these things, and boom, we put up a perfect storm. And really it was the lead people, like sheep, they got led into tech, and they got led into these these lies, right? Everyone that's got the university, education now trying to look for a $40,000 a year job. I think we've all recognized at this point that's a lie. Like, that's not really the answer. And the blue collar jobs are still, at the end of the day, will be the highest paid jobs out there, and they're going to go up. So if you're, if you know those things, what you need to become, and again, this is the movement, and this is the, I think the mission that I'm after is by empowering those installers, by bringing in new guys to start in the trades, teaching them properly, really focusing on being a fucking good mentor, being a good leader, being a good company that people actually are proud to work for. All right. And taking all these stereotypes away that exist, because listen, there's a lot of bad things to be said about the trades and the people that come into it, but whose fault is that? Right. And when's it going to stop? When's it going to be different?
Yep, and this is the modern contractor. We're going after the mindset to be able to create the environment for this next generation to thrive.
And
men
again, that
and
starts. And here's the reality. It's easier to train and onboard and do but nobody's showing anybody how to do it.
Yep.
No one's coming in and realizing, hey, to design an onboarding program, it took me 10 years to get good at it. I've then okay, you know what? Let's give this away. Let's give it away and see what happens. And I realized very quickly that just because that 10 years, and because I could come in and give them all the SOPs, all of the exact things, it didn't mean a thing. They'd just stand there, in 6 months it'd be gone. So I was so frustrated with that happening and seeing that happen that I realized, hey, you know what? These guys need more than that. They need to come in, someone to train them, someone to put the system in place, hold them accountable to running the system, just like you were learning in the trades. If you got taught a bad tactic, how long did it take to get out of your system, if ever? Right? If someone came in and taught you the wrong way, but if someone comes in and teaches you the right way off the bat, all right, and continuously tries to make you a better employer, better marketer, better salesperson, better all of these things, I think that we will see a big shift in the business. And here's my last thing. I'm sorry, I'm on my soapbox today, but
no, please.
The old school way was to keep all the information because you had information. You could hold back information. Guys didn't go up because they didn't know what to do. They kept everybody dumb and in the dark.
Yep.
And it still exists today.
Yep.
It's still going on today. Oh, I don't want to train the apprentice. I don't want to show him my tricks. That shit's over. You can go and find any information on any topic that will be 10 times more than what you know. Absolutely. What are you going to do about that? So let's put that in perspective. So do we have information gating anymore? You are incredibly lost, and you're in big trouble if you think you do, because the average kid can go jump on the internet and research and know faster, more information than you could ever, it would blow your mind. And that's not going to stop. So embrace it. So embrace it.
You're right.
Find people that make you uncomfortable. Find people that do a better job than you can. All right. And accept it. Do what you do best. Again, accept that. Find your lane. Pick your spot, and stop wearing the hat. Start running businesses. You're not going to do that if you have to go back and you're just starting out, or even guys that you have limitations, and that's cool. That's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with identifying that, hey, maybe you're not a good operations person. No problem. That's where, again, what I'm looking to offer as a service, I'll bring a team in. We'll hire the people for you. Like, we'll put those things in place. You have to be able to cope with the change and become a better leader to lead that team. As long as I have faith in you that you could lead, all right, and that when we pull out of the thing, it's not going to all fall down, then we'll work with you, right? If I don't think you have the right, I'm going to call it pedigree, all right, but there are certain people, again, that are chasing the wrong things, that are in the wrong place in their lives where we can't help them, and they're not going to be. Yeah.
You say this about finding the right leader. Now, in your mind, can that be taught? Can that be trained?
100%. I've seen it. I've seen it with my own eyes, and again, it's. I think everybody has the capability. Where micromanagement and these things is, a lot of it's from fear. All right. It's fear of the unknown. And again, I know from my own experience, I was, an incredible project manager. Okay. And when I look back on that, like, the skill I had there was afraid of somebody coming in and seeing my job a mess, or somebody not accepting. So I was on top of everything. All right. Now I was down on top of everyone. I couldn't run a business like that. Now I have to be objective based. Now I have to be data driven. Now I have to give it, right. But those are things that I've learned, and the systems help me. So I have a very good, way of looking at this is, I trust, but I always check. And I mean that sincerely. If you want to be a good leader, leadership as simple as this is, you got to have your eyes on the vision. What's the big plan? Right? The longer you can spend in that zone of leading your team to where you want to be, and the more people you have supporting you to get there, all right, at the end of the day, your job's to get there, right? Your job's to guide the ship. Yeah. If you can focus on that instead of getting into the weeds, and a lot of guys want to be managers because it's safe, right? Leadership's different. Leadership requires a different, mentality, and that can be taught. It can be taught, but it's slower. For guys out there that are great leaders and that, feel like they've got a lot to give to the industry, what we look for is what's your impact going to be? When this is all over, when your end game has come up, what are people going to remember you for, right? Just like I'm living this path now, is I want to have impact. I want to give back to a market that overall has been very good to me, better than most in hindsight of everything that's happened. I wouldn't want it any other way. Yeah. Right. At the end of the day, it made me who I am, and it's given me a lot of advantages as well. Right. So, again, you come back from stuff that I've had to come back from, you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about, people in general. You learn a lot about, again, what it takes to actually make it and actually, be successful at some things. And I wasn't always a good leader. In fact, I was the guy that hid in the basement. I was the guy that ran away. I was the guy that was scared of everything every single day. Right. And, that drove me to work harder, but it didn't make me a good leader. If I had been a good leader, I would never have found myself in that position. Right. Good leaders are also able to take criticism and take advice from other people and not feel like they're being, attacked. And that's something, again, it can be taught, but it's the roadmap that you need to follow, because we don't all start off as good leaders. Right.
No. And leadership is a vision thing. And if your team is not doing what they're supposed to do, it's not a team problem. It's a vision problem.
Absolutely.
That is on you as a leader.
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely.
Jay, tell everybody where they can find you.
Well, we are the Contractor AI. So, again, you can check us out at our Facebook group, which is a great place to start. Lots of free resources and stuff in there. And where else can you find me? Yeah, Facebook, LinkedIn, Contractor AI group. You can jump on there and check us out. I think that's it.
I encourage all of you, if you're ready to make these changes and actually step up and do what's needed to build an incredible business, the Contractor AI is the place to go. Jay, I'm going to stop this here, but this has been an incredible opportunity for everybody to hear you out for the last hour. I'm really happy to have you here. I hope that you can come back again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.